Welcome to another episode of Catholic Faith Forum, where we discuss matters bordering on faith, morals, and popular culture. Today on the show, we are talking about a very topical issue, bullying. Remember the case of the 12-year-old who was killed in his boarding school? Yeah, you do? I'm sure you do. You can see why it's very important that we have to tackle this issue at the root before it becomes an even greater threat. Let me not give too much of the gist away. When we come back from the show, we'll be going straight into the discussion and we'll be meeting the guests with whom we're dissecting this topic. In case you don't already know, I am Chima and welcome once again to Catholic Faith Forum. Welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about bullying, and I have with me to do justice to this topic, Rhoda Odigbo. She is an educator par excellence, if I may add. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chima.
I'm grateful that you came here to do this with us. I mean, it's a very topical issue, and in your field, I mean, I'm very sure you see it more often than we do. So, first of all, let's just go a little bit personal. Have you ever been bullied, maybe when you were young or even now as an adult?
Yes, of course. And the statistics even shows. Yes, I have. I was bullied when I was in primary school. And I don't know, for no reason, this boy in my class just disliked me. And he would wait for me after school and to say all kinds of nasty things.
Those are the worst.
Yeah.
Those are the worst.
Just saying all kinds of nasty things to me. It got so bad, I was so scared. You know, I would wait for my younger sister to come, because my younger sister, for some reason, was more bold than me. So she was much more protective. And then she would, tell him very harsh words. And that's how come he stopped. It was my younger sister actually who stopped it. And I was never bold enough to tell my mom or even the teachers. But yeah, I was.
So how do you think it, affected you growing up? How did it shape you and all of that?
To be honest, I grew up in a home with so much love. And all we were taught was, if someone said to you something nasty to you, you didn't return back with the same measure. You only just told yourself, there's something wrong with this person. What else can I do to make this person better? That's how I was raised. My sisters, everyone in my family was raised like that. So somehow, because of the love I received from my family, I never really felt the need to be someone who was either angry about that kind of experience or any other experience in my life, really. So, but it made me nervous around people. It made me nervous. That's the one thing I would pick up. So maybe one of the first things I would do was say, well, how is this person going to respond to me? I'm just nervous around that. But as I got older and I learned better, I knew how to handle it.
Awesome. At least it didn't really define your life, because there are a lot of people who let this define their lives. It became a part of them. It became who they were. They even morphed into bullies. So what exactly leads people to become bullies?
There's a number of things. So currently I'm doing a lot of work around social-emotional learning. So I'm doing a lot of research around it. And globally, 1 in 3 people are bullied. So in different countries, whether it's as far away in the east side of the world, you have it very low, to the west side of the world, high. And what really makes people bullies, from what I've studied, 1 in 10 families just don't know how to handle bullies. In fact, people learn how to be bullies from home. Because to be honest, parents bully their kids. That's just the truth. When you shut down your children at every time they want to say something, that's
bullying.
That's bullying. You may not always interpret it as bullying, but the point is that you're telling someone to keep shut. And that person tends to always want to keep shut. So the person doesn't actually have a behavior that allows them to defend themselves, which is why we often advise parents, you want to be an authoritative parent, not an authoritarian. You want to give an opportunity, a child or your children opportunities to be able to express themselves. That way, you develop a bond that allows them to come to you when they experience problems, rather than run away from you. You know how fathers are in this part of the world. Be a man. That be a man has caused a lot of young men problems, because they are not able to express themselves, because you have to be a man. You're supposed to be a toughie. So it comes from home many times. So people don't like to agree, but that's the truth. It starts from there. And then Also, people who have been bullies. So you have bullying victims becoming bullies. And then you have people who, for some reason, they're on one extreme part of the divide of being overconfident. And so I'm too strong, I'm the big guy in the room, I'm the best, and
that leads them to look down on others.
Look down on other people. And down. On the other extreme, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough.
I want to drag people down.
And I want to drag people down with me. And sometimes there are hidden social values that people have. For example, when now we have a lot of, depending on where you are, there might be a prejudice against a certain group of people. So in this case, it could be maybe language. You are living in a dominant, a specific part of the country where you have a large percentage of an ethnic tribe.
Yeah.
You get that. You get to get bullied as a measure of group bullying. So yeah, there's a number of things, and there is not really one thing that you can say, because even people who bullied have been researched not to have one particular characteristic. Some are bold, some are quiet, some are coming from backgrounds that are, affluent, some are coming from backgrounds that are completely low resource. Not one measure of, saying, oh, this is how you identify a bully, or these are the factors that will lead into bullying. Just the way we know that every time you say someone commits suicide, doesn't always mean that person was bullied. There's no data that shows you that. So
okay, so since you said there is no actual identifiable characteristic for bullies, are there identifiable actions? For example, maybe raising a voice, someone who's prone to raising their voices, does that mean that person is a bully in the making or something? Are there identifiable actions?
Well, you could pick on a couple of things. Someone who doesn't like to be listened, someone who doesn't like to listen to others. You're having a conversation and that person's voice is the only voice. That could sort of give you an idea, like, this person just wants to be heard. It's also that small bracket of people who feel like they know better than everybody else. And sometimes they don't know that they're bullying because it has become a part of them. Sometimes because there's also something called unconscious bullying. So yeah, I would pick on that one. And I also pick on things that people hide, like if you have some hidden secrets and you don't want anybody to know about it.
Well, that sounds very interesting. Yeah. That sounds very interesting. But hold that thought. When we come back from this short break, we'll continue looking at what causes people to bully, and we'll also look at the effects of bullying. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. My name is Chima, and we've been discussing bullying with Rhoda Odigbo, an educator who is telling us what bullying does to people and, how it happens in the society. So before the break, you were telling us about identifiable actions for bullies, and you were saying something about people who like to assert their voices over others.
Yeah. So there's that group of people. There's also people who have some things to hide, and they feel like, I don't want anybody to know about it. Then they try to cover up. That's not very easy to identify. But the one that is common, of course, is the one we all see. I'm the strongest in the room. They're prone to fighting because those kinds of people are the ones that do physical bullying. They see them fighting, punching, kicking, prone to, push and shove. That's also one of the things that some kind of character traits that you can easily identify. Some people are quiet about it. They just use group bullying. You can't be part of my group. And then they just know how to...
And those ones used to pain. Those ones used to pain.
Very painful. If you're bullied by a group or ostracized by a group, that's bullying. And some people just don't do it violently by being physical. They just know how to regroup they get a group of people and they use that to bully others. So when you see people who are a bit clannish, they don't want you to come in their circle. Those kinds of people also tend to want to bully others.
Interesting. So what about the bullied? I mean, a lot of people keep saying that you must have done something to make him not like you, all of that. They tend to victim blame and all of that. Do you think there is an iota of truth to this? Do people attract bullies to themselves in some way?
No, I don't think so. Look, if you think about anybody who has been bullied, you can't find something that's common about these people who experience bullying. Sometimes you just have to look good for you to be bullied. And you didn't create yourself. Sometimes you're just the bright student in the class. You get bullied for that. Sometimes you're just, from a certain kind of family. You get bullied for that. So there aren't like specific particular behaviors, only that there are probably social values that make people bully others. So for example, if you're a really quiet person,
and we live in a very loud society,
and you live here in this society, you can easily be bullied. So if you're jumping the bus or coming down, those kinds of things, they shove you. You don't do anything about it. You're the kind of person who is calm about the way you address issues. You become a target for bullying. So when you say you're quiet, you keep to yourself, you get bullied. Also, on the flip side, when you're too bold, you also get bullied. So bullying, it's just something that happens to almost everybody. There's no real spectrum to attract or repel. But one thing that repels is when you're able to assert yourself between yourself and the bully. So when that experience is happening, you can just say, you know what, I'm not going to take this.
So fighting fire for fire.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to fight for, because what we teach children now is there are things you do to stop people from getting you bullied, particularly if the school system, if it's a school in this case, because there is institutional bullying, you get bullied in the workplace. So, but if you're in the school system, for instance, and there's a culture of care in that school and the culture of, policies that guide you for reporting if you're being bullied. So what schools will tell, what schools now tend to tell kids is, first thing you do is to report it. Now, most kids don't like to report. Why? Because they feel like, if I report, I'll be the bad person. So the next thing we say is defend yourself immediately and say, no, you're not going to do this to me. If you do it, I will report. Then you move, you go through those particular stages of defending yourself, reporting, and hopefully the school institution will pull their way through to help the situation. So just being assertive is very helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Okay, so how would you gauge society's response to bullying? At the beginning of the show, you mentioned the fact that fathers in this part of the world tend to, tell their male children, man up and all of that. And we see it everywhere in the society. But do you think this is commensurate to what we have, especially with the kind of peculiar environment we live in?
Of course not. No. We're not addressing bullying the way we should. And again, it's happening everywhere. It's happening at home. It's happening in school. It's happening in the religious places. It's happening at work. And even the society itself bullies you. You want to go and get your international passport. They're already bullying you by telling you a number of things that you have to do to get it. Some people won't describe it as bullying, but it's subtle bullying. So it's like institutional bullying. So I don't know. To answer that question is really bullying just is something that definitely happens.
So it's rooted in the society. We
are not doing enough. So if you go to a number of schools, and if I'm going to use the number of schools I know, a very scary percentage don't have bullying policies. They don't even want to discuss it. It's not part of their planning, the school planning, or the administration of the process of the administration for the school. So when there are no policies that are existing in the school, so for example, a parent goes to the school and says, what's your policy on corporal punishment? They don't have it. What's your policy on bullying? They don't have it. Do you, because there's something called the International Anti-Bullying Week. Do you celebrate it? They don't even know about that. So no, we're not addressing bullying the way we should.
Wow. We have to move over to Noso with this week's Saint of the Week, and I hope you're going to learn one or two things from it. Stay with us.
Hey everyone! So we all agree that bullying is bad and must be stopped. No questions asked. If you're a bully, I hope you stop because you're hurting people and yourself. If you're being bullied, today's saint is someone you can pray to for strength to persevere. The little flower of Jesus, Therese of Lisieux, was a smart, reserved kid who, like many others, was bullied a lot. Back in her day, school was not by age, but by what the child knew. Sounds like an interesting way to approach school, right? But I digress. So, being a smart child, Therese eventually found herself in a class of mostly 14-year-olds at just 8 years of age. a big 6-year gap between her and many of her classmates. Being from a conservative home, Therese only knew of her studies and God. However, her new class shocked her because those girls did not just care. They turned the class upside down, made noise, cussed at each other, and many things naughty children do. But she refused to join them, obeying instructions while maintaining her good grades. Typical Hollywood high school movie setting, am I right? Of course, she became a target and was bullied so much that it hurt. Did I mention it was a boarding school too? Therese was left out of activities and was practically ostracized because she was the good kid and the teacher's pet. It also didn't help that she was very shy, almost never standing up for herself. Her only solace was Jesus, who she always found time to sit in the tabernacle with, as well as her family's kindness, who always praised her for her good grades and showered her with the love she didn't get in school. But she never told them of her being bullied at all, bearing it all at such a young age. They wouldn't even have known if not for her little diary, which later became her autobiography, where she wrote down all she faced. She never bore a grudge, and this is what is most admirable about her. So if you find yourself being bullied, turn to Saint Therese of Lisieux for strength, and you'll find it in abundance.
Thank you so much, Nonso, for that. And I hope you at home have learned a lot about our Saint of the Week. There are online platforms for you to take advantage of if you want to learn more. And you can always drop us a comment with a question and we'll be willing to answer you. Now we've been discussing bullying with Rhoda Odigbo, and she has shared quite a lot on this issue. I'm going to ask you about the policies and all of that. So what policies do you think schools, how do you think schools, institutions, how do you think basically the society at large should approach this topic so that it doesn't, get to a very bad point?
Yeah, so first of all, there needs to be, if I'm going to hold on to schools, schools need to actually have a policy that guides the different kinds of bullying. So some schools will say, we have a policy around bullying. But then if you look at it critically, there are 4 types of ways people get bullied. There's a physical version, which everybody is aware of, like the case that you mentioned at the top of this interview. There's physical, there's verbal, there's relational, the one that happens by groups, and there's prejudicial ones. So some group, like I said, I mentioned different tribes or different ethnicities. If those things are not properly laid out in a document that says this is the measure, these are the consequences for every time this happens, then of course it's not going to work. So the first of all, have to create the policy. But you see, policy is one thing. Implementation is another. So after you've created the policy, which is good, is a guiding document that everybody who comes in is onboarded to know that this is what's happening. So whether you have a new staff today, that person knows about it. A new parent today comes and signs to see that this is what the bullying policy is. So everybody in that ecosystem needs to be part of the policy. Parents, students, staff, including those that are not particularly interfacing with the children. So whether it's admin or in classroom staff. So there is that. That needs to be there in itself. Then there needs to be a culture within the school of having that conversation all the time. I don't think that a lot of schools use their events to address issues like bullying. So assemblies, for example, what are you doing there? That's a great opportunity to talk about all the smaller components of bullying and bring it to like a clear awareness to the school systems.
So it's definitely not enough to just have them on paper. It's not enough to say it. You need to take definitive action.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the effects of bullying on the bullies. Now we've talked about the bullied, how it sometimes leads them to a lot of harmful stuff for themselves and even in the future. But the bullied, there's this sad thing about life that bad people tend to live longer. Truly, it's a sad thing about life, but it's something we have to live with. Do you think there are any effects of bullying on people who bully?
So the way I would like to address that is of course, there are effects on people who bully. That is the bully themselves. Part of what affects bullies is that they have this over-bloated sense of self. So they tend to not have emotional intelligence. They're unable to address things. Many times they're unable to keep a job. Many times they're unable to have good families. Many times they're unable to keep themselves spiritually sound. So if I'll pick on those three, at least, those ones are things that usually affect the bullies. But I'll tell you why that happens. Because we tend to look at the bully as the not the victim, but as the
alpha, the strong
predator.
person, the predator, yeah.
But we forget many times that bullies are also victims themselves. And it's not because they might have been bullied themselves, bullied per se. But it's all because they no one has cared to really solve the problem that they're having.
Yeah.
So we say things like restorative practice, because in anywhere bullying is happening, three things have happened. The harm has been caused to someone. Harm has been caused to the community, wherever it happened. There was some kind of harm, as in the case of what the stories that we know that went viral. That all the children that were in that school were affected one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's the community. And then the person, which is why the concept of restorative practice says you who has caused the harm needs to now go through a process of healing so you don't do it again. So, for example, I heard of a school where a student beat up a teacher silly.
Wow.
And the immediate reaction of the school is what? Suspend the student. You haven't solved any problem for that student. Because before the student beat the teacher, the student likely did a number of things that will continue to stay in the school. For instance, she was disrespectful to the teacher. Disrespect is going to continue. She must have raised her voice at the teacher. That's going to continue. What you attacked was...
The teacher will be seen as an easy target.
That's what you attacked was, take this human being out. But you didn't deal with everything else.
The actions that they left behind.
The way it's supposed to be, bullies are supposed to be restored, is you did that action. Now you're going to face a number of consequences. You're going to have a project in the school. Rather than suspend that person for 2 weeks, those 2 weeks, that child is supposed to be in the school actively campaigning against the activities that she did. Writing projects, because this is like a secondary school student. Doing a number of things to heal. So bullies, people who, it's not a good thing to tag people because there is always something that causes it, tend to suffer in a number of ways because no one really goes back to help them to heal and restore. And at the same time, they continue to face that journey as they grow older in their lives and have very difficult experiences with their families, their own personal lives as well.
Okay, I like the fact that you also mentioned that bullies suffer, that they can't keep a good spirituality. And it's important we talk about it. From that angle, what do you think, the church can actually do to help this menace? Because we live in a society where people, grab onto the word of the church a lot more than they do, many, many things. So how do you think the church can come into play in this?
I think the church is already doing a lot, only that the church now needs to do maybe even more. When we talk about the fruits of the Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit they're actually physical things you can see. You can tell when someone is being tolerant. You can tell when someone is being patient and all of those kinds of things. So the church needs to go actively every time talking about these fruits of the Spirit. Because again, that is the example that you're a Christian, that you're a child of God. It needs to be physical for people to see it. Because that's also the way you get people to become Christians. That's how you drag them into the church and become, better people. So I think the church definitely needs to do more in actively campaigning, but during masses and during various programs, have a lot of conversations around it because it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, because especially in the church, people like to, overlook these things and just say, don't worry, we'll sort it out. So it's good that the church takes more action, and we who are the church try to make sure that the church does all of those actions.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful that you came on this show. I'm very grateful for the insight you shared with me and with my audience too. I'm very sure that everybody has learned one or two things from today's episode. All right, before we wrap up, we're going to go over straight to the Know Your Faith team for today's episode of the show. Stay with us. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Know Your Faith series. I am Chima, and today we'll be talking about indulgences. The word indulgence originally meant kindness or favor. In post-classic Latin, it came to mean the remission of a tax or a debt. In Roman law, it was used to express release from captivity or punishment. So what then is the Catholic understanding of the word? An indulgence is the remission of temporal punishment due to sin which have been forgiven in confession. Regarding this definition, the following has to be noted. 1. In the sacrament of baptism, not only is the guilt of sin remitted, but also all the penalties attached to sin. But in the sacrament of penance, the guilt of sin is removed, and with it, the eternal punishment due to mortal sin. But there still remains the temporal punishment required by divine justice, and this requirement must be fulfilled either in the present life or in the world to come. An indulgence offers the penitent the means of discharging their debts during their life on earth. This means that sin is fully pardoned and its effects entirely wiped away, only when complete reparation and consequently release from penalty as well as from guilt has been made. So what do indulgences do for a Christian? Indulgences strengthen our soul and relationship with God, the same way rest and good food builds the immunity and repairs worn-out tissues in a person who is recovering from illness. Now, what are the kinds of indulgences? Indulgences are either partial or full, also known as plenary. A plenary indulgence is the remission of the entire temporal punishment due to sin, so that no further explanation is required in purgatory. A partial indulgence commutes only a certain portion of the penalty. Now, who can grant an indulgence? The Pope, of course. As the supreme head of the Catholic Church on earth, he can grant all kinds of indulgences to any and all of the faithful. And he alone can grant plenary indulgences. The cardinals, archbishops, and bishops can grant partial indulgences as determined by the Pope. Now, what disposition is necessary to gain an indulgence? There are at least 5 requirements that need to be met in order to gain an indulgence. First is by sacramental confessions. This is a basic requirement for receiving any indulgence, whether plenary or partial. The second is by praying for the Pope and his intentions. You do this by saying one Our Father, one Hail Mary, and one Glory be to the Father after any prayer of yours. The third is to receive communion within a number of days of obtaining the indulgence. The fourth is by performing a good action. This can be saying a prayer like the Stations of the Cross, going on pilgrimages, giving alms, visits to a church, or performing a charitable works, or even denying yourself something you enjoy. And finally, the whole aim of receiving an indulgence is to free yourself of any attachment to sin. Do you know that our daily toils, all that we go through each day, if we bear them patiently and with love for God, can purify our soul and make us more like Jesus? I'm sure you learned a thing or two. Support us by sharing this content with your friends and your family. And until we bring you another episode of KYF, be bold and be Catholic. Thank you to the Know Your Faith team for that wonderful one. I am very sure you at home listening have learned one or two things about the article of the faith. Once more, we've been talking about bullying with Rhoda Odigbo, and she has shared quite a lot on this topic. If you missed out on any part of it, you can always catch it up on our YouTube channel, Dominican Media Presents, where we also have past episodes of the show for your viewing pleasure. If you would like to support us in any way with what we do here, call the numbers showing on your screen or visit our website to know more about what we do. And until we come your way with another beautiful episode of the show, keep being saints in jeans and shirts.